Hello once again, and welcome to another podcast interview for Defining Dad Bod. This is John Bauer. I am with Bauerpower Fitness Consulting, and it is time for another Transformation Tuesday interview. And this one, I think, is going to be interesting. I always say it's going to be interesting for one reason or another. I think that you will find that this is going to be one where my guest, Rob Langston, and Rob or Robert? I'm sorry,
Rob.
I forgot. Rob, okay. I think you will find that Rob Langston, my guest today, is going to tell you whatever you need to hear, and he's going to tell it straightforward. I've had a couple of chances to chat with Rob, and Rob tends not to mince words. And so, if you're taking notes or paying attention, be ready to hear it and hear it straight. I think that you will get some good advice and get it straight out of the mouth. So, welcome, Rob. It's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and tell us a little bit about your transformation. And I think one of the great things is, as we talk about these, that it's everyday people that go through this, and it's people that go through a lot of stuff in their lives that go through this. And I know that that's part of your story too, is that you have been relentless and pretty resilient in the face of a lot of adversity, and come through it and are better for it. And so I know that as others are in the same situation, that they'll be the same way. So Rob, I just kind of ask you to get started, if you wouldn't mind kind of introducing yourself, tell us where you're coming from. We're all dads here, so if you'd share a little bit about your family right now and what you do, and then we'll kind of jump into more details about your story.
All right. I'm a retired Air Force. I spent 24 and a half years. I have 3 biological children, 26, 22, and 20. And I got 3 other kids. I say they're mine. I raised them all. But when I went through a divorce, she will no longer let me see those 3. So I'm, do as much as I can as a disabled veteran. Some days is harder than others with the physical ailments and the joint problems. But, you can't never give up. You got to lace up the boots and keep marching on. It's not how many times you can get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up. So if you've been knocked down 8, get up 9 and keep dusting yourself off and keep marching. And I'm in a little town in Alabama. It's called Slap Out. So I'm just doing the best I can. And, first and foremost, I have to give all the glory to God, because without him, there ain't no way I would have made it through all these problems. I've been divorced twice. And, those times were tough. And it helps you, you can either let life beat you or you can beat it. So it's all on your shoulders ultimately, and I've failed in some aspects, but, you find that weakness in yourself, you fix that weakness, and you keep pressing forward.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think you've learned everything you need to learn today, Rob. That's awesome. Seriously, in a way, we've gotten your advice and everything like that, and a lot of those lessons, man, they're lessons that you can take in so many different aspects of your life, and
because that's the nutshell or the onion.
Yes,
and whenever you're ready, we can peel some of that back, and I'll let some of the folks know where I failed and what I found out about myself and how to fix it.
Well, that's a great way to delve into it. And first of all, though, let me tell you, and for our audience, they realize that we're recording these ahead of time, and we happen to be recording this on Veterans Day. So first of all, let me say thank you for being a part of our armed services. We appreciate all you have done. It sounds like you've given a lot of yourself, including aspects of your health. So we appreciate that. It's not something that we take lightly. At least I don't take lightly, and I know that a lot of the people who are listening or watching today do not. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, I my hat's off to you, my appreciation to you for what you've done. I want to jump back a little bit before that, though, to kind of start. I'd like to go back a little bit to your childhood, young adulthood, and things like that. Always like to ask guys who are on the podcast, whether they were active kids, whether activity and eating were not an important part of their childhood, were, good eating habits and things like that. For guys like you and I, who are a little bit older, good eating habits were not a big thing when we were kids. And I'm curious to know how that was for you. Were you an active kid? How were things for you when you were younger?
Yeah, I was a very active kid. I grew up in the mountains of Idaho. We were always hiking, hunting, cutting trees. My dad didn't believe in just sitting there. We had chores. We didn't get an allowance. We got fed and we got a roof over our head. You don't do your chores, there's consequences to that, And today's day and age, it's considered abuse, which is pathetic in my opinion, because it teaches you how to be a man. All of that stuff, if you look back, I did all of that stuff and it taught me how to be better as an adult. But when I was growing up, food, whatever you could stick in your face, brother. I mean, I didn't have to worry about it.
That's true.
Not at all.
Well, let me ask you this then. Give me a couple of, thinking back, and we've all got these. Give me a couple of things that you would call comfort food from your childhood. What were the things that when mom set those on the table, there was not going to be anything empty on the table at the end?
It had to be the deer and elk.
Wow.
Yeah. Because we ate everything we shot back home. Dad always said, and, Dad's a preacher. So if you're a preacher's kid, we didn't have lots of money. And, speaking freely, if I may,
it hasn't stopped you up to this point.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm not gonna
Exactly.
I'm not going to stop you now.
Those preachers who preach the word are, nowadays you see a lot of churches and the preachers preach around the word. Mm-hmm. Don't want to offend anybody, but in my opinion, heaven is a place I want to go and hell's still real. So being that, getting back to the money part, we didn't have a lot of money. So Dad always raised us, you eat what you kill. You don't just shoot something to shoot something. So, there was times when it was scarce. And let me tell you, that government cheese made some of the best grilled cheese sandwiches you could ever have. So the comfort food growing up, that it had to be, some of that roast like on a Sunday after services with the potatoes and the onions and carrots and homemade bread. Oh yeah.
Wow.
I'd hurt myself.
That sounds good. That sounds very good. So, I mean, with you being active, and it's interesting, you describe active in a very different way that I talk with other people being active. I mean, a lot of guys that I talk to, when they talk about active, they obviously talk about being more involved in community events and sports and school and mm-hmm. things like that. You're really talking outdoor active, for lack of a better phrase, guy stuff kind of is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And I can understand that. I come from a background where that was much more the norm. Being that as it was, what for you then kind of set things off to the other direction where either food or lack of activity kind of became more and more of an issue for you? What point in time in your life was it? What happened that it got that way?
After my second marriage, pretty much.
Okay. Which is how long ago?
2009.
Okay.
It became a struggle because you knew issues in your marriage, and sometimes you marry somebody and they take that facade off, and once they got that ring, they're a whole nother person.
Mm-hmm.
And, I dealt with that, and I never knew how to deal with it because, I'm not a guy that has many enemies per se. I like to treat everybody the same way. And on the Dad's Edge, there was, I think that's what it's called, the group I'm a part of that we talked about.
Yeah.
Somebody posted on there how men are abused mentally. And when I read that, I posted on there. I thought it was talking about me. I thought somebody had my story. And being in the military and doing what we did, you didn't think that you could be broke down.
Mm-hmm.
And I was.
Mm-hmm.
So after my marriage, it just kept rocking on. And then I retired.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I retired in 2014, it got so bad. You tell somebody about some of the dark places in your life, and then they use it against you, just like what that can't think of that little article said about women abusing men mentally like that,
Mm-hmm.
and using everything against them. I was in a dark place, brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I just spiraled downhill. I didn't want to go out. I always maintained about 240, 250 throughout my entire military career and was in shape. And I shared with you a couple of the pictures.
Yes.
And then I got up to 320 pounds. And it just, they call it being in the dark, fighting demons.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. You don't know when it's going to come. You don't know what's going to happen. And I would still be happy on the outside. People would see me, wouldn't think anything different. I was also part of a group trying to talk veterans out of suicide. And I'm giving them all this advice from my computer as a happy dude.
Mm-hmm.
Close that computer and you're just fighting this battle that's just raging. And all I wanted to do is hide. I didn't want to be around my wife at the time because I knew that there would be some kind of drama. I would try to be away if she was off of work. And it was just, it's that little by little chinking at the armor.
Mm-hmm.
And then right before the divorce, it was just, I didn't want to do anything. So I just ballooned up. I didn't go outside, do much of anything. I'm just like, woe is me.
Yeah.
And then after the divorce, I was like, she told me I could never see the kids again. And, that's a blow.
Yeah.
I raised them, one's 13, one's 8, and one's 7.
Mm-hmm.
And I raised them all since they were babies.
Mm-hmm.
So they were my kids. It doesn't have to be by blood to be yours.
Right.
But that's the one thing she knew that she could get at me with.
Mm-hmm.
So then it just pushed me that much further. And, it was killing me. You're just miserable all the time. Your whole body starts shutting down. And I had never been 320 pounds. And I was just like, this is pathetic. And then one day I walked past the mirror, probably maybe a year ago. I don't know my exact start time.
Right.
And I walked past that mirror and I was like, who is that? And then I started looking at some of my pictures. And that one picture I shared with you, man, I had a basketball face. I was a fat dude. And I was like, Here I'm talking to all these people and telling them what they need to do to get past. And I'm just sitting here burying myself further.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you think you at rock bottom, look up, brother, somebody's throwing you a shovel.
Yeah.
So you can either dig your way out or you can dig that hole deeper. And
right,
I was just steady digging deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So, about a year ago. And then really 6 months ago, I started hitting it hard. I said, I'm not going to be that fat dude anymore. I'm not going to lay here and wallow in this pity. I said, it's not me. I've never given up before, and I'm not going to do it. So presently, I'm back down to 240.
Wow. So, was this really about five? You said about 4 or 5 years ago, 2014 was when it got really tough. Is that correct, or was it longer ago than that?
The really tough right after I retired, about 2014.
Okay. was it a gradual thing as you were struggling in your marriage, or was it something that really at the very end that it was really tough? And it sounds like it was after as well, if I'm correct, for a little bit.
Yes. And it was gradual at first.
Okay.
But to me, the best description I could say, it's like a snowball.
Mm-hmm.
Started out little, and by the time it got down, that momentum was so fast because I allowed it.
Right.
I didn't do anything to stop it.
Right.
Because I'm like, I love her. I'm going to do everything I can to please her. And there was none.
Right.
And looking back, I see that. And, you know, it's a little gun shy now, because when you walk out in public and you can see it in a dude's face, how he's in the middle of that. And you know it's happening to him. And so I shared some of my story on the Dad's Edge, and I'm like, so a few of them messaged me saying, what do I do? And first and foremost, I told them, I said, look, I'm not an advocate of divorce at all. Not, you know, in my opinion, there's only one reason from what the word says for divorce. And when I found that reason in my marriage, that's when I filed for divorce. You know, but also on the flip side, you have to identify that time in your life where you say enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because if not, it will kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, your health, not only your physical, but your mental health, it just starts to deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
So that you're only a shell of a man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough.
Mm-hmm. You talk about it being a snowball a little bit. Looking back, it sounds like you didn't see the signs when they first started showing themselves.
No, I didn't.
As you look back now and you see the steps and the progression of that struggle, is there something that you could have done that maybe now you would share with someone else as advice to do or to be aware of so that they don't get as far as you did?
Oh, yeah. There's red
What would that be? What? Yeah. The big red lights, the flashing red lights, the signs, whatever you want to call them. What were they as you look back? What were they, and how would you identify them? And what would you tell people getting up those early stages and not missing those things?
In the first part, it's like, well, it starts out gradual where, hey, well, you forgot to, or you didn't, you know, just a little drop in hints.
Mm-hmm.
And then allowing that to continue, then the train momentum picks up. And then it starts, you know, well, you shouldn't have done this. You know, all right, I'm sorry. You know, and I kept, everything was, oh, I'm sorry. And then looking back, I knew those signs were there,
Mm-hmm.
but I was blinded because I loved this woman.
Mm-hmm.
But once it continues and you're sitting there and it's the little things, but then after a while, the attacks become greater. You don't make enough money. You're not doing this right. You don't do this for me. And then it starts that narcissistic type behavior where they blame everything on you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know for a fact that you didn't do that or you didn't cause that. But then the blaming starts getting worse, and then it's your fault.
Right.
And then for me specifically, it could be a great day, but then she wanted drama to attack you with, mm-hmm. so that it beat you down even further, because then that gave them control.
Right. I think more what I was referring to, and that's really good, but I think more what I was referring to was you talking about your own health specifically
Mhm.
getting out of control and becoming less and less of a priority, because obviously you went from 240, 250 up over 300.
Mhm.
Were there any signs, especially in your physical journey and maybe your mental journey, just your own self-image, things like that? Were there any things that you can look back on now and say, man, I wish I would have caught myself then, or I wish I would have caught myself when I started doing this,
Mhm.
or whatever? What were those signs or those kind of mileposts, or again, the red lights that are gleaming within your own physical and mental health that now you look back, see, but you didn't notice that?
Oh, it's the eating habits too. You don't care what you eat.
Yeah.
You're just going to eat and stuff your face with something. You walk by, there's a donut there. Hey, I'll eat this. And then your energy level is, usually you're gauging it. But then after a while, you see it just start depleting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, nothing you did would, add to, rejuvenate your energy levels.
Right.
And it just started depleting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was all because I kept drawing back and becoming more introverted and just sticking your head further in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't that I wasn't able to recharge. It's that, it's that battery. There's a constant drain on it.
Uh-huh.
And I did nothing to fix that constant drain on that battery.
Right.
If anything, I fed into that drain, because then I started allowing myself to start bashing myself too. And then I jumped on the bandwagon and said, hey, you're just a piece of dirt.
Right.
You can't do nothing right. And so back then it was all of that. I didn't stand up as a man like I should to, like you're commanded to in the Bible either. I started withdrawing myself from that and going away from what the word tells me to do as a man as well.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, that's a lot of it, is I did nothing to stop that progression. And when I saw those things, say, hey, wait, no, that's not right. I just kept feeding into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. And I think that's the important thing, because I think so many times we hear stories of these downward spirals where often people look at themselves and all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, how did I get to this point?
Mm-hmm.
And I think what is important to come out of that discussion that we just had is we need to be self-aware enough to notice those little things along the way. We need to notice when eating becomes more of an emotional outlet than a nutritional outlet. We need to become aware when our energy level and when we're doing something becomes harder, or when we quit doing what we're constantly doing, when we quit exercising, when we quit going to the gym, or when we quit going out and doing chores because we're just too tired to do them all the time, once or twice. And I think that that's the important thing that comes out of that is, if we're aware enough, we see the little signs before it becomes too big, and we've got to catch ourselves. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, as you were going through that period of your life, did you have anybody that was close enough to you maybe to point those things out?
Yeah, but when you're in it, you don't care.
Okay. Well, and that's very true. And I mean, the one thing that a lot of times we find as well is that men in particular go through this alone, and we don't have somebody.
That's it. Because as a man, you do not want to tell somebody you have a problem.
Right.
As a man, you don't want to say, I'm weak.
Right.
You don't want to say, I need help.
Right.
So you just, keep shutting off.
Right.
And if that guy's telling you you're wrong, you need to fix this, you're going to be like, you're gone, because you're telling me what I need to know. And I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes your pride gets in the way.
Right. So you did have somebody like that at that point in your time, kind of saying, hey,
Mm-hmm.
Rob, this isn't you.
Yes.
Yeah. And your response was?
I'm fine.
Okay. How long did that go on? I mean, how long did you have people around you telling you?
Years.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to believe it either.
Right.
I mean, you go from alpha dog to the whipping boy, and people see it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. When you're in the storm, you can't see anything. And all you got to do is reach out your hand or set the course and fight it and get through this storm.
Right.
Because after the storm, there is always a calm after every storm.
Yeah.
But my thing is, I didn't swallow my pride. You know?
Right.
I was like, yeah, I just going to wallow in this and, you know, oh, woe me.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, how did your military background and that training play into that mindset?
That's all how I strapped up the boots. You never give ground. You take ground.
Right.
You know, and never give up, never quit. And even my dad always told me that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you do in life, you do it to the best of your ability because that's what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, man, I keep telling all these people, here's what you need to do. And you're fighting this. And here's some of the steps to get out of it. But I never listened to myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I found my weaknesses as a man. And if you really do a hard look at yourself, you can see those chinks in your armor that you need to fix. And if you will take an honest look as a man and you will get rid of your pride, because none of us are perfect, only one, and I didn't die on the cross, you know? So Jesus was the only perfect one, but every one of us got issues.
Yeah.
And I believe in my heart that it takes a real man to admit when he is wrong and to admit that he has faults. We're all stronger, you know, when we work together, you know, and I never tried to fix any of those issues. But when I walked by the mirror and saw that Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, I'm like, no more. I'm done. It's time for me to start practicing what I preach.
Yeah.
And then never quit.
Lace up the boots and go after it.
Yes.
Yeah. And you said that was a little over a year ago?
Yes.
Okay. So you've had quite a transformation in just a relatively short time if you've gone from 320 down to 240.
Yes.
You've had quite a transformation.
And the biggest weight loss, like I said, was from 5 months ago.
Okay.
So I shifted and I'm like, all right, you know, I'm going to start trying to exercise more. And then I started a, you know, keto / paleo style diet.
Okay.
And it's not no hard, fast, set thing. I'm not a, you know, a nutritionist by any stretch, but I found some of the stuff, especially I cut out all bread, you know, and sugars and watch the carbohydrates that I intake.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way I'm doing it.
Okay.
And it seems to be working for me.
Good for you. And as far as, and nutrition is 80% of the battle, but the other 20 is activity and exercise. What did you find that worked for you?
Walking out the front door, that's where it all started. You know, I've got a few chickens and different things, but I would go out, you know, and just start, you know, trying to pick up limbs in the front yard. You know, it's not like I'm not running a marathon right out, you know, at 320 pounds. I just started getting out and being active.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, you know, try to do some more workouts. You know, my joint problems really hinder me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just stay as mobile as possible
Okay.
and then watch what I eat.
Okay.
But that was the first step, was opening the front door. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And the one thing, if dads are struggling with any of this, you're not going to ever get anywhere unless you take the first step. And that first step, believe me, is the toughest.
Yeah.
Because
What kept you motivated during those first tough steps? Because that's always the hardest time, is until you see some results, it's hard to plug away. What kept you motivated?
not wanting to be that fat dude no more. Getting rid of that image I saw in that mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've never pulled punches, so I'm going to stop now. But I had to go to court, and the ex's boyfriend was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a huge motivation. Yeah.
Well,
I'm not going to lie.
A little revenge served cold.
Yes.
Is not a bad thing.
I'm not a perfect dude.
A little revenge served cold is not a bad thing.
Yeah. So when I was kind of said, man, I'm not even where I want to be, and but I'm not going to be, vain about it. I really thought about it, and I prayed and said, I'm sorry, God, that was wrong. But that was a motivation.
I can imagine.
But the big, in honesty, the biggest motivation behind it all was, I'm not going to die at 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was killing me.
Yeah.
I could feel it. Life was draining out of my body. My mind, my soul, my spirit, everything was just, I got away from, I didn't even want to listen to God. And that's a sad thing to say.
Yeah.
But now, I'm trying to get my life right back in all aspects, because without God, in the first place, I would have never made it. And I truly believe that God put me on this earth to go through struggles so I can help other people. And sometimes I want to say, hey, God, I'm not sure. I know you know everything, but there's other folks out there that could go through some of this, But
it doesn't all have to be on my shoulders.
No,
yeah.
No. Because a friend of mine laughs all the time because stuff happens to me, and you could writing a fictional book, my life sounds like a lie. Just stuff that's happened. One time I got bit in a courtroom by some random lady in my first divorce, and I had to save a little attorney from getting beat down. It was like Jerry Springer live. So but all the stuff that's happened to me, I have witnesses, So, and saying that, if I can help any of the dads out there that are going through this, I mean, swallow your pride, because you can stop it before it takes a toll on you. Because if you sit down and you close your eyes and you take a full assessment, and then you look in that mirror, you can see those red flags. Mm-hmm. They're going on, but you want to put the blinders on and cover up, hoping that it'll just go away.
Right.
And I'm here to tell you, don't go away.
Yeah.
And then, on the other hand, I know it's not all just the women that are doing this. The guys could be causing some of the issues as well, but if you take that 100% look in the mirror and you do a good in-depth look at yourself, find out where you're doing wrong in your relationship or in life, if you're single, a single dad, and you look at yourself, you can see those red flags and fix you first. Because if you can't fix you, you can't fix nobody else. So you got to fix you first. And that's what I started really looking at. And, everybody says, why don't you start dating? And I'm like, because I have to fix me. I was broke hard. I allowed myself to go way too far. And there are things looking back, I could have stopped some of this. I could have stood up and said, hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going down that road with you, and I'm not going to allow you to beat me into the ground. So you could stop it if you take an in-depth look. And if you look at yourself, and there are some women out there that the men ain't doing nothing wrong, but it's a problem with them. And man, I wished I could remember that article that was on there, because it was awesome. Everybody needs to read that if they're going through something like this. But there are flags, and you need to fix you and then bolster you, and don't allow yourself to get beat down. In a football game or anything in life, you're not going to allow yourself to get totally destroyed. If something ain't working, you're not going to keep trying that same thing over and over and over. You're going to find out how to fix it.
I've heard that referred to as the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yes. And I was insane, because I was trying the same thing over and over. And if you really look in the mirror, but see, then again, if the woman isn't going to get help for her issues, it's not going to stop. And that's why I want to say, at some point in time, you're going to have to figure it out as a man. Are you going to continually go through that just because you love that woman? When you love somebody, they may not love you the way that you love them. Mm-hmm. And then there's a whole bunch of things out there. They're not going to respect you like you respect them. So how much abuse are you going to actually take before you start fixing things?
Right.
And again, I'm not saying go out and divorce your wife if you're going through this. I'm not saying that at all. But there may need to be a separation between y'all before, your health takes a toll.
Yeah.
And mine did, and I wasn't going to step out. So looking back at the flags, I could have stopped this a long time ago, but I was like, I love her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great stuff, man. That's great stuff. I feel like I've got about 5 hours of wisdom in just a little under an hour. So I appreciate that. As we kind of bring things to a close, and I mean, congratulations on the success you had. What's next for you? Where do you want to go with your fitness? I mean, what do you want to accomplish? Where do you see it? And the other question is, how do you see you maintaining whatever you choose to go towards in the future?
I'm looking at 225. I was like, maybe 225, because I got big monkey bones, I'm not a little frame dude.
Yeah.
So I still hold my weight pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And at 245, 240, I don't look, obese or anything, but I was thinking maybe 225, because in life, you don't just accept standard, you try to exceed it. So I was like, maybe try down to 225, because I went from a 40, 42 waist, and now I'm wearing 34s again. So I'm like, I'm not going to be that fat dude anymore. Because it sucked getting up and taking a shower as a fat dude. I mean, you're like, oh, this is miserable. Life just sucked. I mean, it's like that kid's toy that's a rechargeable battery. You plug it in all night and get 2 minutes of use out of it because the battery's shot. But now I have a lot more energy. I'm loving life again. I'm enjoying, being alive. And, it's not just that miserable feeling. Because when you're out of touch with reality or whatever you want to call it, you're miserable. It just sucks getting up in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, oh, crap, here comes another day. Why can't I just sleep it away?
Yeah.
You know? But now I'm like, hey, get up and do things. You know, live life again.
Yeah.
And that's why I said maybe 225. We'll see. I did have, you know, this last week was a cheat week for me. So I didn't go way over par, you know. But I'm like, yeah, this fat kid likes a donut. I'm not going to lie to you. You know, some of that sweet stuff. But, you know, I have my cheat. And then, you know, this evening I start back to the hardcore, you know.
Is it easy for you to go back to that after that? Is it easy or is it hard?
It's easier. Let me tell you, 6 months ago when I started this hardcore, because I did some, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but if one dude said this works for me, you know, if I get something electronic or whatever, I want to be able to push the button and it go. I don't want to read. I don't. I want there to be, hey, you need to do these 6 things and it'll work.
Right.
You know, don't make me read a 42-page book to learn those 6 things. Just tell me what to do. I'm a well-trained monkey. So I read, and, you know, when I first started out, I don't know if you ever heard of the snake eaters diet type thing. But you fast, you know, and then you drink electrolytes and so you fast. So I fasted for 48 hours and then started trying to kick my body into ketosis. So then once I got into ketosis, it just started pounding off. And then, you know, it was hard. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. If you're a dad out there and you're 320-pound fat dude like I was, and yeah, I'm talking about myself too, because I was a slob. I was a fat dude. But it sucked. I mean, giving up bread, really? I don't know if any other dads out there, but man, I could damage some bread. But I cut out all breads. I've never been a soda drinker.
Right.
But if you are, and you cut out sodas, you cut out breads and starches and everything that stores is fat in your body, you know, that first 3-4 months, it sucked because you would look at somebody eating a ho-ho or a Twinkie or a donut and I'd be like, I'm going to pound that dude in the ground and take his donut. Yeah, but now after I do that, I can kick into diet easy. It becomes, because you change it, and anything that is worth doing is not going to be easy. Yeah. But now, where I'm at now, I can kick back into the diet hardcore and be okay with it. Yeah. Because there's things, if you look out there on the keto diet type thing, you know, there's some pretty good stuff out there. Yeah. But I'm not hardcore keto. You know, some of the stuff I read, that's hard on your body. You know, some people say it's not, but, you know, my body's already trashed enough. So I do my own thing, and it's, lack of better terms, a combination between keto and paleo, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So, and it works for me.
And I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. And as a dad out there, if you're struggling with your weight, don't do like I did. I dove straight into it and just struggled. I mean, that's a year ago when I started struggling. I'm like, you know, don't give up everything. Take it one step at a time, because it's easy to give up. If you have that intrinsic desire to quit and you quit a lot on things, it's not a bad thing. It's just a trait that you have, and you can overcome it. So, all right, then say, all right, this month I'm giving up all bread, but I'm still going to drink my sodas. Right. So give up one thing at a time. don't give up. I went full into it. And then, like I said, 5-6 months ago, when I dove straight hardcore into it, it sucked.
Yeah.
I gave up everything, quit eating any sweets, any candies, any cakes, bread, no sugars, no nothing. I went hardcore all the way. And to me, that's the kind of guy I am. If I'm going to go at something, I'm doing it 120%. I'm not going to just trickle in.
Right.
So you have to decide where you are,
right?
How you work best,
right?
And then find some of the stuff out there that works best for you, because one diet style works for some, but not for others. You have to determine what is working. And you being the fitness guru, you know, you've probably got a lot of tools in your toolbox that I could have picked from and done a lot better than I did. But, you know, you got to start somewhere.
Right. And that's the important. And I think that's the greatest thing to kind of wrap this up on is back to kind of what I've gotten out as a combination is lace up your boots and take a step out the front door.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great mental picture for whatever you're going to do to get your health back on track is just lace up your boots and take that first step. And without that first step, it's going to be, and it's going to be a tough battle. The first few steps are going to be tough, but
I'm here to tell you that.
Yeah.
But every step after that gets easier.
Correct.
And then pretty soon, if you keep at it, you're going to look back saying, man, why was I think that was so hard?
Yeah. Correct. Like I said, I got about 5 hours of wisdom in the last hour. So I appreciate you taking the time to share this. I think this is going to be really impactful for a lot of people. I think keeping your eyes open and being self-aware. Finding those little red flags that go up along the way when things get bad. And then, you know, just taking that first step. And I was going to comment on one other thing. You know, I've heard a concept called habit stacking. Mm-hmm. Start with one thing. When that gets easier, then you add something else. And I think that's a great way, you know, to keep in mind for something like this as well, is not feeling like you've got to do it all at once, but habit stack and little by little, each thing becomes a lot more routine and more part of your discipline. So, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I think this is just going to be really encouraging for a lot of guys, especially guys who are walking through tough times. You know, just really, you know, realizing and seeing the things that they can identify maybe in their lives as they're walking through. And
if there's any guys out there, John, that contact you in this saying, hey, hit me up. I'd be glad to talk it over because I've been there.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Thank you so much for your time. I think this is going to be wonderful. We appreciate it. And thank you for your service and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks a lot.
I thank you.